Hello, and welcome to Change the Face of Yoga, teaching toddlers through golden oldies. I'm very excited to be talking to lots of yoga teachers who will explain their passion for teaching yoga to students with different ages, physical fitness levels, wellness levels, and different goals. They will explain the benefits of yoga for these students and will be including teacher tips and pose modifications. I am Stephanie Cunningham of Yoga Lightness, and I've been teaching over 50s for 10 years. So this area is my passion and the passion of many other yoga teachers that you will be listening to in this series. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get started. This is episode 22 of Changing the Face of Yoga, and I'm interviewing Natalie Almond, who is an Alchemic yoga teacher. She explains what that means, and it reminded me of the neuroscience and somatics research that we discussed in the Future of Yoga series. It's all very interesting. Let me know what you think, and let's listen to Natalie. Hello, this is Stephanie Cunningham, and I'm welcoming Natalie Almond to Changing the Face of Yoga. Natalie has been teaching yoga through the healing arts for 24 years. She teaches a rare style called Alchemic yoga, working through the alchemical processes of the body to restore pH and mind-body balance. She has her own studio called Anahata Yoga Space, and she's in Maruba here in Australia. Welcome, Natalie. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that introduction?
Alchemic yoga, we're working on the alchemic process of the body. So when we're looking at the essences, it's body, soul, and spirit, and the chemistry that's related to in the body. So when we're working with the liver, we're releasing a lot of bile and alkaline substance. So that's your spirit energy because it helps you to calm down, to relax. When you calm and you relax, your spirit lifts. So that helps to stop obsession and addiction and all of those kinds of things. Usually obsession and addiction start from your liver being run down anyway. So we create a lot of alkaline substance through the liver, and we see this as our spirit energy. Mm-hmm. And we use this also to dissolve old patterns. Just like soaps have alkaline substances to strip the grease off the plates, we too can use those alkaline substances to strip through the oily hormone and the program we have in the body. So it's a bit more like DNA restructuring as well. That's the right side. It's quite difficult to explain at first, but after you use the practices a few times, it becomes easier.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as we work through the middle so that's all the right stretching of the body. So as you stretch through the right side of your body, you're working your spirit energy, you're lifting your spirit. So we always start on the right side first to alkalize the body, counteract the acid, to clear and calm and to create space to prepare for the yoga practice. And then after we've worked on the right side for a while and alkalize the body, then we do all the center poses, down dog, cat stance, all of the center poses, which then activate the endocrine glands in the body because they're right through the center of the body. We see this as soul energy, and from the endocrine glands we release a lot of hormonal oils. So they lubricate, nourish and regenerate the body. We all know that that's what hormones do, as well as they're very intelligent. They can send energy all over the body, telling the body what it needs to do next to the organs, to the glands. So when we're working through the middle, we're focusing more on what we wish for in life. So we're not thinking about that in the head, we're feeling that in the body. We're creating an emotional state so we can bring on what we wish to, which is what we're doing every day anyway in life. Whatever we feel happens to us. We create our reality by our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. So this is a chance to use the processes slowly because we're doing it rapidly every day anyway. So we're breaking these processes down so we can then create something new, whether it's a healing process you're going through. As you know, whenever we're in a healing crisis, we need to alkalize the body. We need to cleanse the body. So we always start with the right first. Then we move through the middle and we use the hormonal oils to rejuvenate, to heal, or to reprogram. So we're using this through our emotional state more than anything. And then finally we work to the left side of the body, so all the left side postures, as if you were doing a salute to the sun, right, middle, left. And these organs are more acid producing and salt producing, so they more tend to fix things, strengthen things, tighten things, give you focus and balance. So when you release the salts and the acids in the body, they're actually tonifying your body and giving you strength. But if you've put a programming in there, then they give you the strength to the program you've put in. So it strengthens the cell walls and holds your new perception within that you brought on working through the middle of the body. It sounds really difficult at first, but we're doing it naturally every day. Just like the breath changes every 20 minutes, we're breathing through the right nostril, and then naturally the breath moves over to the left side. So it's always keeping that alkaline-acid balance. And it's the alkaline and the acid that create the balance of our hormone, whether it's too thick or too thin, too alkalized or too acidic. So when you're looking at that, it's the right side, the alkaline side, is your mind energy. The left side, the acid side, your body energy. So your thoughts and your actions. And it's bringing those together to create the perfect balance of your hormone, the perfect balance for your soul.
I think it's really interesting. I did a podcast with Tom Myers of Anatomy Trains, and he was talking about the somatic research that's going on. And it's very much what you're talking about, is how movement and breath is affecting us all the way down to the DNA at this point, going through the hormones. And so, yeah, this is the future of yoga, is that we're starting to research yoga so deeply, and we're finding out, we know it works, but now they're finding out why it works. And he was talking in much the same way as you are. Now, what I wanted to know was, you said that only 4 teachers in the world teach this style.
Yeah.
And how did you learn this?
I learnt this through my teacher, who's a very Aussie guy. I was 25 when I started yoga. Actually, I was 23. I actually started with my mother first. She wanted to go to a yoga class but didn't want to go on her own, so I went with her.
Okay.
And then I found another teacher, John Burke. I was in a bit of a healing crisis myself. I had a very obsessive and addictive personality. So I worked hard, I trained physically hard, and I partied hard. So by the time I found my teacher, who was also a healer, I had a lot of liver problems, kidney problems, full-blown sciatica down one side of the leg. I was quite a bit of a mess, and I was only 25.
Oh, dear.
And he had trained with some tantrikas. He'd done a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong. He studied a lot in many different forms. He studied anatomy and physiology, a lot to do with different religions, many, many, many aspects. He actually had cancer himself as a child, and it was a tantric gypsy that walked up to him on the beach one day and said to him, "Oh, you're not as sick as you think you are. I know you have cancer." And he just looked at her very shocked. Anyway, they took him in for 8 months and did a whole lot of tantric training with him. And tantric even these days is a lot distorted, because tantra is actually also about celibacy and about retaining that energy and bring it into the body to heal the body. And again, that's the basis of the hormone. So when I met John, he's John Burke, he gave me a whole lot of practices and exercises to do to alkalize the body. So working on the right side of the body a lot to create more alkalinity, to keep working the liver, to bring the liver up to health so I wouldn't have addictions anymore. So my spirit would be lifted and I wouldn't need drugs to lift my spirit. I also went off chemicals for 6 weeks, but that includes chemicals in food, absolutely no chemicals whatsoever. So no drugs, no chemicals in food, just a really pure cleanse. Took some herbs, Hepato D, St Mary's milk thistle. Also did a lot of visualising. So in the classes we do a lot of visualisation. So I was talking to my liver a lot, telling it had to heal, it's got to pick its energy up. Spleen, you have to slow down, because a lot of obsession and addiction comes from the spleen. The more acid side, they create patterns. So I had to tell the spleen to slow down, stop making so much acid, and get my liver to catch up and work a little bit harder to create more alkaline until I had more of a better pH balance in the body, which in turn, the pH, the acid and the alkaline, is the mind-body energy. So becoming more balanced in mind and body. So my soul could feel comfortable within me. The hormone would be at a better level because we know that blockages and tumours is the hormone becomes acidic to almost so thick it crystallizes and forms blockages. So that if we see that as the soul, that's our emotional state. So the more we can balance the hormone, the more balanced we become, not just in thought and action, but acid and alkaline, spirit and body, all of those two opposing aspects of ourselves, the yin, the yang, the hatha, sun, moon, yin, all of those aspects begin to balance within us. So through all this visualizations and having treatments from my teacher and taking the herbs, one day I was having a treatment and there was this visualization that I had. It was a real cartoon picture, and there was a little boy with dark hair sitting in a dark room, very timid and very scared, and that was the rundown liver. And then outside it was a country setting, and there was this little blonde-headed boy at the top of the hill. And he was overexcited and really happy, and he started skipping down the hill, but he was going so fast that he started tripping over and toppling down the hill, and he came to the front door of this little dark home, and there was this boy sitting on the chair with the mother by his side. And the blonde-headed boy was trying to call him outside, but he was too afraid to go. And eventually he shifted and he stood up, and the mother's, go on, go outside, go outside. And he stood at the door, and the blonde-headed boy put his hand into the room, and the boy took his hand and just felt comfortable straight away, and they both left and skipped off in harmony. So no longer the blonde-headed boy was overactive, and no longer the dark-headed boy was underactive. So the overactive boy, the spleen energy, and the liver energy, the underactive boy, balanced out. So then the liver and the spleen, I realised, was now balanced, a lot more balanced. So the acid and the alkaline, the pH in my body, my thoughts and my actions, and that created the healing process within me.
Well, that really is about yoga, though, isn't it? Bringing the balance. You're talking about alkaline and acidic, but it's the same principle of bringing those two opposites into balance. It's just a different way of thinking about it, I think.
That's right. And it all comes down to strong visualization, because we're creating our worlds all the time through what we visualize, our daydreams, our night dreams, and our perception of life. And we can use visualization to create change. So in my classes, yeah.
Go ahead. I think you were going to answer the question anyway.
Yeah, in my classes, we continually use visualization. Continually. So it's when we work with the essence, but then we also work with the elements, earth, fire, air, water, wood, and the organs they're connected to, and the emotions that they set off. So our emotions are first felt through our organs. The heart, and this is quite a Chinese philosophy as well. So the heart and the small intestine is our fire energy, and that's about anger, discontentment, frustration, or it's about being happy and content and just satiated. The spleen, the stomach, the pancreas is about worry, panic, anxiety, stress. But when they're balanced out, then we're feeling more focused, we have a lot of energy, stamina, and willpower. And then the air element is the lungs, the colon, the skin and nerves, all about letting go especially of grief, sadness, hopelessness, and inducing joy and hope in life. The kidneys and the bladder is fear. The opposite of that is when you get those organs healthy is you're full of excitement instead and courage. And then the liver is the wood element, springtime. That's the liver and the gallbladder, and that's about depression, lethargy, not feeling connected, not feeling complete. And when the liver becomes healthy, you again feel connected, you feel complete, You've got a lift in spirit, you have a natural high, and you have calmness. So when we're practicing our yoga, I talk about the organs that are being worked through each posture and what emotions to release from you. And as you inhale, drawing in the more positive emotion that relates to that organ. So as we're practicing the yoga, we're visualizing letting go of what's no longer serving us and bringing in what would serve us.
So if I showed up at your class, would it feel like a yoga class to me? Or because it sounds almost like you've brought in a lot of the Chinese philosophy, and I'm just wondering if a traditional, shall we say, person walking into a class would feel like it was yoga.
If you're a typical vinyasa person, it wouldn't be what you expect.
Okay.
If you are a hatha practitioner, it would be absolutely amazing.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Look, all the postures are pretty much the same. I don't work on... I think if you want to get physical, you should get out there and go for a run. You should get out there and do your push-ups and your sit-ups and everything else you need. And which is what I used to do. I used to train very hard. It was very athletic. But my yoga practice has always been a lot softer and more gentle. So we're focusing on moving energy through the body. So you hear a lot about flow classes. Flow classes are quite often move so fast, you don't have, if you're a deep breather like myself, you don't even have time to take that full 3 breaths. You don't have time to embody the asana that you're working on. And to me, I don't see that as flow. Flow is about allowing the body's fluids and the energy to flow through the body. So we move slower. I do some Qigong exercises at first, and then we move through our yoga practice, but we're moving, extending our energy beyond our extremities. So you're allowing the flows to move to the fingertips rather than reaching out and then the fingers tighten. Then how does the blood and the lymph flow to your extremities? How does the energy move beyond your body? This perception of energy that's in us, around us, flowing through us, what emanates from us. And if we're pulling too tight, then we're actually cutting all the flows off in the body. So we're focusing more on allowing the flows to move through the body and beyond the body. Cat stance, fish pose. We're still doing all of the postures that you would practice in yoga. I'm not too much of a warrior pose person. I know they're the most popular poses that are supposed to be done in every class. We do it similarly, but both feet are facing the front because a lot of people do have a lot of SI joint problems, and I find that warrior can actually aggravate those a little.
So what kind of standing poses do you do? Because I admit that I do a lot of warriors, and I would like to have some options. I mean, there's triangle, but what else do you do that gives you that same kind of effect?
Well, it's very similar to warrior, but we have both feet facing the front rather than the back foot turned out, because that immediately takes you into the external muscles. When you're in the internal muscles, you're actually milking from the glands. But the minute the foot turns out, then you're drawing out into the external muscles, and it's not a wrong thing. I'm not saying it's a wrong thing at all, but my teacher always said, years ago, both feet always faced the front, and then as yoga came to the West, people couldn't balance, you'd start to turn the foot out. I don't know how correct that is. I do believe it, though, because you can feel the difference. If next time you do a yoga practice, just turn your toes to the front and feel it's actually harder to balance, but you're definitely much more through your center, your core, your chakra energy. Okay. So we just move a lot slower, more fluid. It's almost like a slow hip-hop movement, you could say.
Really? Just adding a little bit of that, too.
If you go onto my Instagram page, you'll see there's a couple of little videos there of me doing a little bit of yoga.
Okay.
It almost looks like action replay.
Okay, sounds good. But you also say that you use lots of energy release, such as jumping, pummeling, sound, kidney and lung rubbing, flowing lymphatic movement. Mm-hmm. So what's the purpose of that?
Okay, so at the beginning of the class, we're working on letting go. Rubbing the kidneys, pummeling the kidneys, all your ki, your chi, your prana, your energy is made in the kidneys. So if you want the energy to start flowing, you start rubbing with the kidneys. And already then the energy starts moving through your body. We know that the kidneys filter the blood. The kidneys always need help because most of us in life these days arch our back too much and we're putting a lot of pressure into the kidneys, which stops a lot of the chi flow, the pranic flow in the body. So we rub the kidneys, get energy moving through the body, cupping the lungs, removing the excess phlegm from the lungs, and then we get deeper breath flowing through us. So we do all these preparation exercises that are opening the body, getting us ready for our practice. And then we're doing a lot of shaking and pressing into the heels. And what that does, it helps to clean the lymphatic tissues. It's releasing excess adrenaline, so then you bring yourself into a calm state. But it's also cleaning the lymphatic tissues. And then the cells can exchange a lot more easier. They can actually release the toxin and the stagnant energy and then draw the fresh energy and the fresh hormone. So what they actually do now with cancer patients, they do get them to succuss. It's called succussing. They usually get them on a mini trampoline and they get them to jump up and down for 20 minutes because it cleans the lymphatic tissues. Once you've released some energy through the kidneys, released the lungs and expanded the lungs and got rid of the excess phlegm, there are two ways of bringing energy in. We know that every time we breathe in oxygen, but we're also breathing in the prana. So when we can breathe deeper and the breath is released, then we can bring in more prana. And when the breath is released, the heart rate stabilizes, the lungs, the breath rate stabilizes. We become more comfortable, more balanced straight away. And then we have different moves where we're actually circulating the lymph. So we sort of lift the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, the fingers. So we're increasing the flows of blood, lymph and prana through the body. And then once you get that feeling of movement, then you can get that feeling of movement through your yoga practice. So we're sort of, rather than focusing on working the external muscles, we're trying to work from inside out. Because when we work from outside in, we're actually strangling the internal muscles and we're actually stopping the flows. But once we can start from our center and move outward, we're radiating our inner beauty, but we're also working through the energy body and pushing outward to our flows.
You say that you teach younger students, senior students, people with mental health issues, cancer patients, and all types in one class, which I'm rather in awe of.
I know. I was doing some yoga therapy once and the teacher said, it's impossible to be able to do that.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
But how do you do that? I mean,
when we come into ourselves or when we're working on a healing crisis, or someone will jump on at one end or the other. They might start physically by practicing yoga. They might start emotionally by just changing the way they're feeling. They may start spiritually and mentally by starting with meditation. And when you look at illness, it's the same thing. It's either a spiritual illness, a physical illness, or an emotional illness. If we're working those three aspects, the physical, the acid side, the emotional, the center, and the spiritual, the right side, the alkaline, anyone can fit into that class.
So you would have people not all doing the same thing by any means at the same time?
Not always, no. Sometimes I will tell somebody, well, you can't actually do this posture. If they have a slip disc, you have to do this differently. But most of everything else they can do. Most of yoga, most people can do. So with mental health, if I see them starting to get a bit flitty, then I just bring the whole group down together and we'll work more in the physical side of. If there's mental health issues, there's emotional issues and there's physical issues. If there's something like someone going through chemotherapy and it's a physical problem, they've got something in their body, but there's also an emotional and a mental side to that as well that's created that.
Like I said, I'm in awe to have all those different types of students in one class. It means that you must be very, very in tune.
So I am very intuitive when it comes to teaching a class, and I actually come into the room, I say a prayer, I open the channel from the earth to the universe and draw on that energy, and I never plan a class, I just trust what's coming out in the class at the time, and it always seems to meet everybody's needs. They'll say, you said exactly what I needed to hear. Oh, those postures were exactly what I needed today. And everyone will always walk out saying that. And I think if you don't plan and we're all affected by the planets, we're all affected by the moon. And if we just trust the way we're feeling, it's the way the students are feeling as well.
So there's a connection there.
Yeah, there's always a connection. We're all connected. Everything's connected. We are the one spirit. That prana is flowing through everything and everyone in the whole of the universe. The planets are affecting everything and everyone in the whole of the universe. So when you trust your intuition, and it's very hard to go wrong. I mean, it's not just saying that. It's not just intuition. I've studied a lot. I've practiced a lot of yoga. My teacher taught me a lot of healing through yoga. We learned a lot of hands-on healing. We learn a lot about energy, a lot about anatomy, chakras, the elements, the essences, and I put a lot of that to practice. When I was young, when I first started at 25, I went away for 14 months and everything had taught me, I think I was around 27, 28, 29 by then, I put into practice for 14 months, and then I learned a lot through that. The energy comes through you, and then you learn more and more. You observe your own body, your own heart, your own mind, and that's where the learning really comes through. And I think with yoga teachers, the more practice they put in of all aspects of yoga, then that is when they start to really learn.
That's excellent. I think that's true.
There's too many yoga teacher training being pumped out these days, and a lot of people are coming out really still not knowing enough, even to treat minor injuries like, I've got high blood pressure. Oh, okay. Just go to pose the child. Well, you don't. You have to have your head up if you have high blood pressure. I've got a slip disc. What are you going to do about that if someone comes in with a slip disc? Well, I'm not sure, but that night I would go home and look in my big book. I said, but they're there now in front of you. What are you going to do?
And I think it is an issue that the community of yoga should be looking at as to what we're producing and how viable some of those teaching programs are. We're actually, I'm going to have a whole series on teacher training in a couple of months. So we will be dealing with that. And your opinions are shared rather widely, at least among the teachers I've been talking to. So it's probably an area of change, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah.
I just hope something horrible doesn't happen in the meantime. Yes. Okay, well, I'm extremely impressed by your breadth of knowledge. It's obvious that you have done considerable study and considerable practice to have all of this kind of at your fingertips. One other thing, I'm not going to quote because I don't have permission to do so, but I was very impressed by the comments on your Facebook page, and I suggest that people go, I'll give you that address in a minute, go and look at those, because it's obvious that what you're doing, which I totally agree is not traditional yoga.
Well, actually, can I correct you? It is actually traditional yoga.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we're going back to now.
I think that's true.
This is ancient tantric techniques. It's very ancient hatha techniques. And this is the sad thing, that people think it's something new, and it's actually, this is where we came from. This is actually where it started.
Yes. So let me rephrase that. It is not current yoga. How's that?
That's better. Yeah, it's definitely traditional.
That's what I'll say. It is not what we currently think of as yoga, but your students are just enthralled with what you do. I mean, they are so thankful, I think, and so happy that you do your yoga that way, that I think it's a lesson to those of us that do a more current version of yoga about perhaps getting back to our roots. I want to really thank you for this podcast. I think it's a really different way to look at yoga, and that's exactly what I'm trying to achieve with this podcast. And is there anything else you would like to add before I let people know how to contact you?
But I think the best way, I am going to put an e-course up fairly soon on all this style of yoga, so other teachers people that have come out of the teacher training can have a little bit more knowledge. Okay. Or people that need to go through healing would be able to use it just as much as a kind of a teacher training.
Will that be on your website?
That will be on my website. And I think the most important thing is through your yoga practice to keep a little bit of humour as well, because you come into yoga rooms these days and everyone looks so serious.
Yes.
So keep the humour, because laughing creates flow. The blood flows, the energy flows when you laugh, So don't be afraid to put a smile on your face. Teachers, don't be afraid to crack a joke. You are there. You are the entertainer. And I think that's something that's very important to remember, because if you want to keep your students engaged, you've got to engage with them and show every emotion. Be honest. Be honest with how you're feeling. Just allow honesty to come through, because that's where your teaching will come through. If you can just be yourself and be honest, everything will work out fine.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent words.
And also we've got a couple of retreats coming up as well, so people may like to come on those, because retreats is where you will learn more.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. I did notice those on your website. So Natalie's website is www.anahatayogaspace.com.au, and her email is anahatayogaspace@gmail.com. And then she also has a Facebook page that I believe is Anahata Space, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You can contact Natalie, look at her retreats, wait to see the e-courses coming up about this rather intriguing type of yoga that is actually harking back to yoga's roots, which sounds very interesting. Natalie, I really thank you for being on. I think you've added some real different aspects to the discussion I'm trying to get going here.
I hope I didn't make it too confusing.
I don't think it's simple. I agree with that, but I didn't think that it was not understandable. It was just you had to think about it, because you obviously have a great deal of knowledge and experience, and I'm sure that it's hard to get to the point of the very beginning and trying to explain it, but I thought you did a very nice job. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for that wonderful interview. If you would like to be a guest on Changing the Face of Yoga, please go to my website, www.yogalightness.com.au, and under the Changing the Face of Yoga tab, you can complete Be Our Guest form. After reviewing the form and finding it applicable to this podcast, we will send you a link to schedule an interview. Please download, review, and tell your friends of any podcasts that are of interest to you and to them. If you would like to contact me, send an email to info@yogalightness.com.au. And thank you for listening to Changing the Face of Yoga.